It was a typical Monday morning at Everwood Enterprises. The office buzzed with activity as employees shuffled through their busy routines. The hum of computers, the click of keyboards, and the ringing of phones filled the air. Everyone seemed focused, dressed sharply in business attire as they prepared for another week of deadlines, meetings, and corporate strategy. Among them was James Thompson, a 72-year-old janitor, wearing his usual uniform, a faded blue jumpsuit, a worn-out cap, and sensible shoes. He moved quietly through the hallways, pushing his mop bucket ahead of him, his movements slow but steady. No one paid him much attention as he carried out his daily duties, cleaning up spills, wiping down countertops, and emptying trash cans. To the workers in the office, James was invisible, just another part of the background. Some staff, however, made it their business to poke fun at James behind his back. "Have you seen the old guy today?" one employee snickered. "It's like he's always here, just never going anywhere." The others chuckled, their laughter cutting through the otherwise sterile environment. James couldn't help but overhear. He'd been with the company for over 15 years, but to them he was just the janitor. He had seen it all. The whispers, the sneers, the mocking glances. But today, something was different. James didn't acknowledge the comments, keeping his head down, focusing on his work. He had long since grown used to the ridicule, yet, inside, he knew there was more to him than the cleaning supplies he carted around. There was something they didn't know, something they would learn soon enough. As the morning stretched on, the employees of Everwood Enterprises continued their routine. A group of workers gathered near the break room, sipping coffee and gossiping about the latest office drama. They continued to ignore James as he quietly swept the hallway, his back hunched from age. "What do you think of the new project manager?" one woman asked, her voice loud enough for James to overhear. "Honestly, I can't take him seriously. He's just another suit trying to act important." Another employee chuckled. "If I had to deal with all those ridiculous corporate meetings, I'd probably look just as miserable as him," he said, rolling his eyes. James paused for a moment, glancing up as they spoke. But he said nothing, his expression impassive. It was the same thing every day. Mockery, condescension, and disrespect. But he had learned a long time ago that silence was his most powerful weapon. He kept his head down and continued his work, ignoring the subtle, almost imperceptible jeers that followed him through the office. But unbeknownst to the staff, there was something happening outside the walls of the office, a change that would soon come crashing into their everyday lives. James wasn't just the janitor, he had always been more than that. And today, he was about to reclaim what was rightfully his. A week passed and the office returned to its usual rhythm. But for James, the days of sweeping and mopping had come to an end. His presence in the office was about to change forever. He had received a phone call the previous Friday, a call that would change everything. As he hung up the receiver, James smiled softly to himself. It was time for his return. The office staff, oblivious to his true identity, would soon be in for a shock. He wasn't just the janitor anymore. He was about to walk into that building as someone entirely different. On Monday morning, the employees of Everwood Enterprises went about their business, blissfully unaware of the surprise in store for them. They had no idea that the person they had once mocked, belittled, and ignored was about to step into the office as their new boss. As the clock ticked toward 9 a.m., the office doors swung open. The employees looked up from their desks, their conversations fading to silence. In walked James, no longer in his janitor uniform but instead dressed in a sharp black suit, a crisp white shirt, and a tie that was neatly knotted at his collar. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his posture was straight, radiating a quiet confidence. The office fell completely still. James's footsteps echoed in the hallway, each step measured and deliberate. He made his way to the elevator, ignoring the shocked stares of the employees who watched in disbelief. There was no trace of the old janitor in his demeanor now. James Thompson, the man they had ridiculed, had returned, not as a janitor, but as the new managing director of Everwood Enterprises. Inside the office, chaos erupted. Whispers ran through the cubicles like wildfire. "What's going on? Who is that? Is that really James? The janitor? He's the new boss. No way." The employees couldn't believe their eyes. James had always been there, quietly cleaning the office, invisible to them. But now he was standing at the entrance to the management suite, looking every bit the part of a high-ranking executive. His transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. It was as if the quiet, humble janitor they had so often ignored had disappeared and been replaced by someone far more important. Within minutes, James arrived at the management suite, where he was met by a flustered secretary. "Sir, we weren't expecting you today," she stammered, her face flushed with embarrassment. James didn't respond. He simply nodded and walked past her, his eyes scanning the office as he made his way to his new desk. The secretary watched, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. The man she had seen mop the floors and take out the trash was now her superior? It was too surreal to comprehend. Meanwhile, the employees who had mocked James just days earlier were frozen in place, their faces pale and filled with confusion. They couldn't understand how someone who had once been the subject of their ridicule was now in charge of the entire company. It was a humbling moment, one that none of them would soon forget. The conference room door opened promptly at 10 a.m. All of the employees and management were gathered, seated in stiff, uncomfortable silence. Everyone knew that James was about to address them, but no one knew what to expect. James walked in, his presence commanding the room. He paused for a moment, letting the tension settle. The employees shifted in their seats, their eyes darting nervously around the room. James didn't waste any time. "I know many of you are shocked to see me here today," he began, his voice steady but strong. "But let me make one thing clear. I didn't come here to be anyone's punching bag. I didn't come here to be mocked or looked down upon. I came here because I have something to offer this company. And if you can't see that, then I suggest you start looking a little harder." He paused, letting his words sink in. The room was still silent, save for the occasional nervous cough. James continued, his tone unwavering. "I've spent years working in this company, quietly doing my job. But I wasn't just sweeping floors and cleaning windows. I was learning. I was observing. And now, I'm here to lead." The employees exchanged uneasy glances. James's words were a stark reminder of the disdain they had shown him. And now they were being forced to confront the reality that they had underestimated him. "I won't tolerate disrespect. Not from anyone," James added, his gaze sweeping over the room. "If you can't show respect to each other, then you'll have no place here. This office is a place for growth, for collaboration, and for respect." The tension in the room was palpable. It was clear that James's leadership would be different, and no one was sure how they would adjust to this new dynamic. The next few days in the office were nothing short of transformative. James wasted no time in implementing changes. He introduced new policies, revamped the office culture, and ensured that respect and professionalism were at the forefront of every interaction. But the employees, still reeling from the shock of his sudden rise to power, struggled to adapt. Some resisted the changes, still harboring the same dismissive attitudes that had defined their treatment of James before. They couldn't reconcile the image of the old janitor with the man who now sat in the executive chair. James, however, was unfazed. He knew that earning their respect would take time, but he was determined to lead by example. One morning, as the employees gathered for a team meeting, James took his place at the head of the table. He looked around at each person, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I'm not here to make friends," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to make this company the best it can be, and that starts with how we treat each other." There was an air of discomfort in the room. Some employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats, others avoided his gaze entirely. James could sense the lingering skepticism, but he also knew that this was the moment that would define his leadership. Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, things began to change at Everwood Enterprises. The employees who had once mocked James began to see a new side of him, the side that had always been there beneath the surface. They saw his dedication, his wisdom, and his ability to lead with integrity. James had earned their respect, not through force, but through the example he set each day. And as time passed, the whispers of disbelief faded away. The employees who had once been his bullies now approached him with newfound admiration. It wasn't just James who had changed. The entire office had been transformed under his leadership. The atmosphere was now one of professionalism, collaboration, and mutual respect. James stood at the window of his office, gazing out at the bustling city below. It had been 6 months since he had taken over as manager, and the transformation at Everwood Enterprises had been nothing short of remarkable. The office was thriving. Employee morale was higher than ever, and the company had seen a significant increase in productivity. But more than that, there was a sense of unity, a sense that everyone, regardless of their role, was contributing to the success of the company. James had proven to everyone that leadership wasn't about appearances. It wasn't about titles or uniforms. It was about respect, dedication, and the ability to see the potential in others. And as he looked out at the city skyline, James knew that he had created a legacy, one that would endure long after he was gone.